Hello and welcome back to the channel, folks. HeirofCarthage here, and we are back at the Dolmens of Karnak. So hopefully you are ready for a battle with some nice stones in the background. We've got Egypt on one side and Saba on another. Should be interesting. The visibility is limited from the deployment points, and oh my gosh, Saba deployed their entire army down here. Oh, what the world? How did they deploy over here? Were all these... Surely they don't have all these vanguard troops. I don't think they do. Interesting. I don't know how Saba deployed so many forces down here, so there must be an interesting deployment zone on this map, because it looked like Egypt was expecting their enemy to deploy further up here in all of the rocks and stuff, and so Egypt is now quickly trying to move their army to counter, and we see a lot of Sabaean camel cataphracts moving in. Those are moving out of picture right now, and then there's some desert levy and slingers. And then as far as infantry goes, we're seeing Mosquet Marauders here. These are some pretty solid axe units. In case anybody's wondering the type of unit, they do pretty good damage. They're not to be confused with the insane Kush Shotel warriors. Wow, very quick movement to the flank here by Saba. They were pushing for a surprise attack to try and catch Egypt unprepared. And honestly, Egypt is still out of position a little here, which could cost them. However, they are coming into position. The Levy Thurio spears are moving up front, where they can pitch their javelins into the Sabaean camel cataphracts. I made up a new unit there before I even realized it. Ouch! That Egyptian cavalry is going to tank that charge, and then the Levy Thurio spear. Here comes a brutal cataphract charge just headlong into the Egyptian army to try and fix it and cause tremendous damage. Royal Thorax Sword General, once again, which is an interesting pick here. Those cataphracts are hitting home. Another Royal Thorax Sword, so two Royal Thorax Swords. Third one over here, so this is an elite army, and then there's some carrion axes. There's some more Egyptian cavalry coming in. And in the back for skirmishers, there's a few Egyptian slingers. One of them got hit in that initial charge. The cataphracts are cycling out and allowing more units to move in. That Thorax Swordman there, not the Royal variety, did take some damage. The Carrion Axemen combined here to crush the Desert Levy with that Thorax Sword. So a pretty solid infantry line here. Mosquet Marauders, I think they're going to be dangerous. I don't think they're going to be taking out Royal Thorax Swords. That said, there's a lot of cataphracts to deal with here. Ooh, that Royal Thorax Sword's going to eat a charge there from the Camel Cataphract. They were trying to get braced, and they may have. This Carrion Axe unit's going to get a brutal charge here, too. If they can score some hits on the return, though, they'll do very good damage against the armor on those cataphracts, and then this Levy Thurio Spear has a good opportunity. So basically, at this point, Egypt's going to have to try and survive the beating. Now, 2-on-1, the Mosquet Marauders might be able to take out the Royal Thorax Sword, which that's the position they're in there. And then it's 2-on-1, 3-on-1 here. So there are definitely pockets where Egypt is going to struggle to hold together. Marib Camel Cataphracts getting a little bit beat up there. A lot of Marauders now heading in. But let's kind of just keep an eye on the flank over here. That Royal Thorax Sword weathered that charge storm pretty well, about as well as can be expected for any unit taking on multiple Camel Cataphract charges there. The Royal Thorax Swordsman is actually really sticking it to these Mosquet Marauders at the moment. Though I would imagine the Mosquet Marauders will probably get a decent value here, even if it doesn't attribute a ton of kills, because they're cutting through the expensive armor of those Royal Thorax Swords. It looks like the Carrion Axemen now moving up to try and get ready to help in these upcoming fights. Royal Thorax Swords pushing forward here into the Mosquet Marauders. And the Levy Thurio Spears falling back, and I'm assuming are going to be left to guard duty against the camels. Right now, the balance of power shows a little even, maybe a bit in favor of Egypt. We will see how that plays out. This Royal Thorax Sword's definitely killing a ton of Marauders at this point. There's still a lot of Slingers. There's 4 Slinger units left back here for the Sabaeans, and they still have their cavalry as well. About half wonder, do they just kind of slow play this, try and keep their Slingers alive and eat away at the Egyptians with that nice late-game armor-piercing damage that Slingers can do? I mean, they're doing well here. Another Mosquet Marauder. I mean, the Sabaeans, I don't know, though. They're getting thwacked right here. That Royal Thorax Sword. There's still quite a few Marauders right here in the middle. They're going up against other axemen here, which will not be spectacular for the Marauders. They're going to do best when they're getting thrown into a lot of expensive armor. Egypt is starting to run out of guard units back here. They do have some Thuriel spears, and they have a little bit of Egyptian cavalry. But that Egyptian cavalry is also making overtures to outflank and take out slingers, which I do think is very important here for Egypt. However, if they leave their back too open to those cataphracts, it could swing the battle. So a risk being taken here by Egypt, but I think it's a necessary risk to get rid of these slingers. So if they get rid of the slingers from the Sabaeans, Egypt probably is in a decent position to win this battle, because the Muscat Marauders are being overwhelmed right now with just better quality Egyptian infantry. That mixture of Royal Thorax Swords and Thorax Swords is hitting real hard, and then that backup by these Carrion Axemen, they throw their javelins and then get a lot of damage done. Not surprised the cataphracts are going to break through to some of those slingers. Levy Thuriel Spears doing their best, but at the end of the day, they are Levy Thuriel Spears. There's only so much that they can do. The Egyptian cavalry doing its best to take down slingers. It's taking quite a bit of fire in the meantime. There was 2 units of them. I don't see the other unit anymore, but the single unit of Egyptian cavalry should be able to dump the rest of those slingers, assuming it's not intercepted. The infantry line for the Sabaeans has collapsed, which is going to leave the camels to face all of the infantry alone, and they won't be able to cycle charge their way to victory, I don't believe, at this point. They did some pretty intense damage. That initial charge from the Sabaeans was brutal, and you're going to see it when we get to the end screen and you see the kills on some of these cataphract units. It is pretty tough to weather that storm. I think the Egyptians got just enough together just in time. And honestly, I kind of feel like the elite infantry did pay some dividends here, in the sense that the Muscat Marauders struggled to cut it down. They just couldn't get through it in a quick manner or a super effective manner. So it left the cataphracts carrying some of the weight here, and they just weren't able to tilt these engagements completely in their favor. Egypt has a lot of javelins that can be quite dangerous to cavalry builds, so that's going to, by nature, make for some cautionary decisions by the Sabaean player here, where they have to worry about, where am I charging my cataphracts? Are they just going to end up in the face of a ton of javelins? That's a very real factor. As you can see, these Carrion Axemen proving my point as I speak. And there's more of them back here that very well could have more javelins. They may not. So that's just something Egypt can do. They can put a lot of javelins out. Levy Thurios, Carrion Axemen. It does make them somewhat effective against enemy cavalry builds. However, their own cavalry is not good, really, in an anti-cavalry role. So it does limit those capabilities to where Egypt tends to probably go a little more heavy with units on foot. But a solid victory here for Egypt, and an interesting use of Royal Thorax Swords, which was something that I wouldn't have expected to see. But I mean, they did fine. This Royal Thorax Sword picked up 169 kills, 203, 138. Definitely some good value. As you can see, only one of the Muscat Marauders here picked up a chevron, so they were struggling to get the value that they needed. However, almost all of the camels picked up chevron, some of them triple. 376 kills, 236. So again, it may not have seemed like it because the Egyptians won the battle here, and so some people are like, oh, those camels weren't that good. They were absolutely crushing units. It just wasn't quite enough. I did think that Saba did well at keeping their slingers alive and protected for quite a long time in this battle. It just, ultimately, there wasn't quite enough units left to protect them in the end from that Egyptian cavalry that broke through, and we can see which one that is. You can see which other Egyptian cavalry did not get a chance to get over there. So yeah, it's, I thought they did a pretty good job overall. I love the deployment and the aggressive flanking maneuver. It didn't quite work out, but I think it was a pretty good idea regardless. So hope you all enjoyed this one. HeirofCarthage signing out for now. I'll see you soon with some more action in Total War Rome 2.